Hey everyone, it's Ivan, KidBadger.com, out here for another gear review, and today talking about this little guy, the Gen 3 Law Tactical Folding Stock Adapter, or in this case, maybe pistol. It is, wait for it, exactly what it sounds like. It is a folding stock, or in this case, brace adapter for a AR platform, be it a 308 or 5.56 gas piston or direct impingement. Right here, it's on the Sugar Weasel by Q, and it allows pretty much anything that requires an actual receiver extension buffer tube to function. It basically allows it to still function, but gives it the added benefit of being able to fold, so you can ultimately create a much smaller package than you would otherwise have with a direct impingement, or for that matter, any type of traditional AR type gun. I've been using this particular law folder on this gun right here, serial number 1, Sugar Weasel by Q, both with this, the 300 Blackout, as well as my 12.75 inch 5.56. And this actually went on tour with me on the 2020 Coast to Coast tour. Shot all the way across the country, and definitely a lot of time with me behind it as well. And in that, it's done a great job. Functioned flawlessly, and yeah, definitely serves its purpose with respect to making this thing really compact. Quickly, we'll go over an overview and kind of how it works. As you can see, it's basically increasing this section right here between your low receiver and your receiver extension, your buffer tube. Still uses a castle nut and this rear plate. By way of example, I have this one by Noveski with a built-in QD, so you can still use that if you want. And on the bottom here, built into the unit itself, is another QD placement if you want to actually run your sling right there. You can do that as well. This side, left side of the gun, is the hinge side, or the side it folds into. If we take a look over here on the right side of the gun, right here we see the button to go ahead and use this, or to fold it rather, and it's protected with this piece of metal so you don't accidentally depress it. But by depressing that, it allows you to fold aside that entire piece, and now we have a nice small compact package. This right here is actually a captured buffer, silent buffer by JP, and if you're not using that though, there's still the regular detent down here that is going to hold this in place, or your regular buffer and buffer spring. Another point worth mentioning, inside here there's basically an extension that extends your bolt carrier group so that it can make contact with your buffer and have your gun function smoothly. To remove it, we depress this button and we move our charging handle back, pushing our bolt carrier back. And inside there is a plug, this one specifically for the silent capture spring. And either way, whether it's this or the standard one, basically slides in to your bolt carrier group. Got to depress that to push everything down, make sure everything's seated. And then when you let go, it keeps that captured so it doesn't come loose, and then allows you to go ahead and close it and function it, or open it up. But it needs to actually be closed in order for you to run the bolt. Otherwise, if you try and run the bolt here, it'll get stuck and it will not function, which is by design. Which brings us to the use of the Law Tactical folder, of which I think there's basically two. One of which is because you think it looks cool, do it for the gram, totally valid, do what you want to do. And the second one is because of the actual need to take a gun that otherwise is much larger and turn it into something more compact, so that you can maybe carry this places or in certain carrying configurations like backpacks and things that you otherwise would not be able to if it were not for the Law Tactical folder. Two different options there. I will say both of those uses come with a cost, twofold. On the one hand, you are adding weight. This unit is machined out of 4140 steel, super strong, tight lockup, incredibly robust, and it weighs about a pound. So If you're taking a, I don't know, 5 or 6 pound gun and turning it into a 6 or 7 pound gun, that may or may not be a big deal depending on how much you're carrying it and what your actual application is. You're also introducing complexity and potential failure points. Doesn't mean that this is going to fail. No, absolutely not. But if this is going to be your real gun that you're potentially using in defense of your life, just different things you should be aware of. One of which is this plug inside here, it needs it to function, which is not a big deal. And this piece right here keeps it locked in there. If for whatever reason you end up losing that piece, the gun won't function, which is a pretty big deal because it's also not a part where you're just going to go down to local like sporting goods store and be like, oh, let me grab another one of these real quick. It is like an integral part to making this function. In addition to that, have I seen any failures due to the Law Tactical folding stock adapter? Yes. No. Was it a failure of the actual unit itself, or was it probably a failure of the person that installed it? Probably the latter of the two. What happens is over here on this side, there's this little screw that's basically a set screw. Inside here, there's a ring that basically gets threaded onto your lower receiver and then this hinge part of the Law Tactical folding stock adapter. And this piece tensions down onto it. And it basically keeps any movement. So there's no movement in this. I can't do it because I installed it right. But if this backs out or was not installed correctly, like to torque spec, then what happens is that can be loose. And so in turn, this entire unit back here becomes loose and you end up with some movement. What does that mean? It means you have a one-shot dead man's gun. You'll be able to fire that shot, and when the charging handle, or the bolt carrier rather, starts to come back, this will be ever so much out of alignment and it'll bind. Your bolt will bind and you will get just that one shot. So hopefully you made that first shot, if that's the one you need. You're like, Ivan, that sounds terrible. Why would I ever want that? Because this, when installed correctly, does an amazing job that honestly nothing else does. It takes your AR platform and cuts off a lot of inches, making it able to be easily carried in a smaller package, which if you have a real use for this, that is huge. Again, if you want it to look cool, all right, like it'll look cool. But as far as the actual use of this, it is huge being able to basically take this platform and make it that much smaller. And as I mentioned, yes, those are potential things. And I mention them because if you have one of these, I encourage you to make sure this is actually installed properly so that that doesn't happen. As I mentioned, lots and lots of rounds through this thing, zero issues whatsoever. I just have seen that with other people that have installed these Law Tactical folders. So I bring it up. If you are installing one of these, due diligence, actually make sure this thing is torqued, probably put some thread locker on there. And if you want, you can even just take a paint pen, put a little line across there, so at a glance you can actually see if it is rotated and starting to come loose. Again, not saying that's going to happen, but I'm saying take steps to ensure it does not happen. If you're just looking to do it for the gram, yeah, it looks pretty cool, but you are adding weight and complexity. If, however, you actually need to make something nice and compact so you can actually carry it in places you otherwise would not be able to due to length, this is amazing, hands down. It is really incredible product to that end. So much so that one of my buddies, Bill Rapier of Amtech Shooting, he actually has an entire course designed around compact carbine deployment, and this honestly features kind of front and center largely in that course as far as stuff that he uses as well as what students show up with. This is kind of the only game in town with respect to a legitimate way to go ahead and fold your AR platform that actually uses a buffer and buffer spring. It's pretty huge. You're like, wait, what about that Chinese knockoff I saw? you could go that route. Half the cost, quarter the quality. Which brings us to the price. Is it expensive? Yes. No. Here's what it really comes down to. If you just want to pick this up for the gram, it's pretty expensive. If this piece is going to allow you to take a reliable gun and carry it in places you otherwise would not be able to due to length restrictions, bag, whatever it may be, yeah, absolutely worth it, 100%. This is something that will allow you to do that. So again, goes back to use case. These adapters are offered both in flat dark earth as well as black, and you can get them a number of places to include Brownells. If you actually have the need for a compact gun that this allows you to create, I think they're absolutely worth it. But as always, thanks for joining us at kitbadger.com. Look forward to seeing you next time.